Well, everybody, this is quite interesting because if you guys might remember from a couple years ago, I started talking about something that quickly became an unpopular opinion. I started saying that I had a feeling that we were currently in the rising action of another Gamergate, effectively. Gamergate being like the sort of broadly accepted name for the era in time online in which right-wing populist politics kind of dominated the mainstream. Everything from like Trump-related memes being like the top of trending and popular and posted by people who aren't even into politics or don't know anything about it, to just like the general essence of what the right was memeing about being what was popular with everybody. And so like you couldn't tell if a guy was like repeating a Nazi meme because he heard it and it's popular and it's funny from their perspective, or if they're like dog whistling some Nazi shit, or if they just like to see libs get triggered. There was so much mixture of different types of people with different politics and different motivations for expressing their politics that made the era that was Gamergate just the worst. Especially if you were a progressive figure of any kind, there was no space for you to exist online back then. Certainly not a space for you to exist and have a substantial platform and a large amount of support. Times have changed, but I've noticed things swinging back towards looking a lot more like 2016 ever since 2020, to be honest. Or sorry, since 2021, to be honest. I'd say about halfway into 2021 is when it really started to pick up. 2022 was the year of Andrew Tate, and so was 2023. And now we're entering, well, we're well into 2024. It's an election year, and the right is desperately pushing for, as I predicted, a Gamergate 2. Some of them just outright call it that. Mainly centered around this company called Sweet Baby Incorporated, which is a consulting firm meant to like allow publishers to use them to be risk management for their content, right? So there are many different ways in which a company can be valued in the stock market. One of them, or one of the things you can do to positively impact your value in the stock market, to have a strong company brand and potential, like, you know, lot of green on your portfolio, is to increase your ESG score. It's why you hear ESG all the time. And ESG score refers to a bunch of random shit. A lot of it just has to do with progressive stuff, though. It's like, is your company morally good, or does it act like it's morally good? The more it acts like it's morally good or does morally good things that generally the left would agree with, such as climate, like preservation, like charity, like representation and stuff like that. These things can typically lead to a higher ESG score, which makes a company look like a safer investment, because it does make it a safer investment, and then people want to invest in it, and that tends to be good for companies, you know? And so Sweet Baby Inc. is not a company that you can buy shares or stock in, but it is owned by BlackRock, I believe. Either Vanguard or BlackRock, I forget. One of those giant fucking firms. And obviously, these are not woke or socialist companies. These are the biggest fucking firms in the world of the corporate world, right? The idea that, like, there is a conspiracy happening here because a company is owned by one of the two companies or three companies that owns all the companies is ridiculous to me. Regardless, though, Sweet Baby Inc. is, like, definitely, it is a woke company. For all intents and purposes. There is no denying that. The idea of it is that if you are like a game publisher, not studio, publisher, you contact Sweet Baby Inc. and they consult and they like basically review your content to make sure there's nothing there that's obviously going to cause like a massive explosion of controversy, because, you know, people don't like that kind of thing anymore. Now, the right sees this not as just capitalism doing what capitalism does, corporations wanting to be as safe as possible and risk as little losses as possible when trying to get their gains. Instead, they try to insert and inject some kind of weird social political ideology. Like, nothing to them can ever be economic. Like, no politics to these people can be economic or policy based. No politics can be economic or policy. It's always social. It's always got to be tied to some social conspiracy theory because they don't read about bills. They don't read policies or bills or anything like that. They just want to talk about a culture war. And that's what pushes movements like Gamergate and what we're kind of entering now. I got sent this video called Never Knows Best. It's long as hell, so we're not going to watch all of it, but I highly recommend you guys go watch all of it because from the looks of it, it's going to be quite good. The real story of Gamergate 2, conspiracy theories, cry-bullying, and a consumer revolt. I don't know if this is like a great video or if it's a like if it's a game or a video that's like bad or whatnot, but I've had it recommended to me as if it's like a really good video about this, you know, like a really good breakdown of what's happened. So yeah, let's watch it. From the looks of it, it seems like it's gonna be pretty good. So let's take a look. I've not seen any of this. This is a blind watch, but like I said, go send a view. Go send a view. I'm pretty sure this is a good video, so I'll drop the link in chat. Go send some support. Let's watch this. I'm curious to see what this is all about. Because I missed this. This kind of reminds me of that, like, beginning of BreadTube, quote-unquote, era of online politics when people were, like, beginning to start responding to the popular narratives that were just prevalent in mainstream internet culture. Like, ideas that, like, trans people are all, like, crazy and delusional. Like, that was the standard belief among most internet culture, way more than it even is today back in 2016. Like, the idea that you thought trans people were valid back in 2016 would immediately get you laughed at so much more than it does today. Like, I think the only place where you can replicate what Gamergate was like online is current Twitter. Current Twitter is a pretty good approximation of what the whole internet was like back then. So that's kind of what they're trying to remake. They're trying to bring it back to that.
A minor event created a major controversy, which apparently helped elect Donald Trump, led to the rise of the alt-right, and birthed the political conspiracy theory of QAnon, as well as many other things, apparently. Pizzagate, the firing of James Gunn, the mantra of learn to code, the creation of post-truth, the criticism of that Netflix movie Cuties, the January 6th US Capitol attack, the creation of weaponized memes and boxing, the popularization of white replacement theory, the reason why people called Amber Heard Amber Turd in the Johnny Depp trial, a golden age of disinformation and unapologetic fascism, the Black Pill movement and incels, the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband, the pushback against woke corporations.
I always get shit from anybody whenever I bring this up. I'm not even defending either party because I think they probably are both guilty and suck of what they've most of what they've been accused of. But like, what's funny to me is that people who are like super anti Amber Heard and pro Johnny Depp, they love to say Amber Turd and reference like turd in the bed thing. But the same report that corroborated the turd in the bed was too big to be a dog's, that it had to have been a human shit that presumably she left in his bed. That same police officer, I believe she also reported that when Amber Heard answered the door at one point, not on that trip, I don't think, but a different visit, she had bruises on her eyes, like having been hit, and they questioned her about it, and she like walked it off, you know, kind of like talked it away. So why is it the same eyewitness testimony about the turd thing is taken seriously, but the same person who said, yeah, I saw bruises on Amber Heard, that same person said they saw bruises on Amber Heard that very much could have only been given by Johnny Depp. And yet that's disregarded because it's not convenient to the narrative that Amber Heard's an evil bitch who's slandering our beloved Johnny Depp, who's the funny pirate guy we like in those funny pirate movies. And wouldn't it be funny if she was so evil and awful she shit on his bed and it was just that simple? I think they're probably both pieces of shit. I just don't like that, like, it has to be one side is good, one side is bad when an abuse situation happens. Sometimes there's abuse situations where the victim is such an imperfect victim that they arguably start victimizing too. Like, does that make sense? Like, there's a difference between not all victims are perfect and a person who has been victimized going so far in response or whatever that, like, they've almost done a worse evil than the other party started it off with or something, you know? Like, it's just such a shit show. I think they both suck. Yeah, Depp has been a creepo for a while, by the way. Like, if you know a lot about Johnny Depp's, like, history, he has been, like, kind of pseudo-canceled multiple times, but, like, it never stuck because people are so dedicated to defending him. The same goes for Tom Cruise, right? Like, Tom Cruise is a walking ad for the Church of Scientology, and nobody gives him shit for that. Like, everyone loves Tom Cruise and looks past it, even though the guy is literally an advertisement for a cult that has disappeared people for speaking out about what goes on behind their closed doors.
Yep, it was all connected. All of it. And as for the people involved, they made it onto mainstream TV. They went on Joe Rogan and late-night talk shows, ran for office and gave talks at the UN, all about this one thing. This was...
Gamergate.
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 Gamergate. Gamergate.
And it was, somehow, one of the biggest controversies of our times, modern history in the making, something that changed the course of the internet forever.
Not really.
And now it's back.
I feel
apparently.
like viewing Gamergate as some like bizarre out of nowhere phenomenon is really kind of like pointless. I think what we need to look at it as is the right's broad adoption of the internet. Frankly, the right and people on the right, especially the far right, very quickly adopted the internet. So fucking fast. It's, you know, you could be like a white supremacist organization and you could organize behind the scenes, like in real life, like at actual rallies and like recruit people from alleys and like schools and stuff. You could do that. Or you could just have it be an internet forum, a viral internet forum or YouTube channel or account or just like stream. That's entire purpose is to mass disseminate right-wing misinfo and propaganda with the goal of popularizing memes and quips that are beneficial to right-wing talking points and beliefs, to normalize hateful ideas so that any like progressive values come off as weird and preachy, to demonize caring and like being an activist or like passionate about things. They just very quickly decided that stochastic methods through which to disseminate their ideals and encourage people to act on them was the best way to do it, and they adopted it so fucking fast and so effectively because these guys don't believe in anything or have any core fundamental morals. It was very easy just to pump out drivel content, much of it like literally talking about stuff that never fucking happened. We just went over the Hades stuff, and as it turns out, the Hades 1 Aphrodite is the one with like the strong cheekbones and like the masculine / androgynous looking face. The Hades 2 design for Aphrodite is the new design, or is the design where she's like looking up in the air with the shield and the spear, and she looks super feminine in her face in that one. The right claimed that the Hades 2 design is the Hades 1 design, and the Hades 1 design was changed to be the masculine looking Hades 2 design when it's literally the other way around. They literally, like, that's the current thing they're doing. That's just an example. They make these things up, and they push misinfo, and eventually, people get fed up with the left's bullshit after they've had a few dozen false stories told to them, that have been meticulously crafted to make the left look as evil as possible to gamers or whatever targeted audience is being targeted, right?
So what is going on? Well, better check in with the most reliable news source on the internet, daily YouTube videos.
Sweet Baby Inc. is not a consulting group. Sweet Baby Inc. is here to destroy video games. They are a disease. They are a absolute disease in the video game world, and they need to be treated as such.
There is nothing more going on here than one massive grift to exploit an ideological Marxist hole.
Oh my god, he's wearing a shirt that says critical based theory. Jesus Christ.
Which is rotting the West.
That literally is actively trying to undermine Western civilization by their own admission.
They demand you shut up, submit, and bend every single joint in your body to their every whim. They hate us and they want us gone or even dead would be preferable to them.
They despise you if you're a gamer and you're a white male. That is the one thing.
Remember, this was the argument the weird goblin dude we covered a little bit ago made? That, like, I'm not going to buy Hades 2 because its creators are woke and woke people hate me for being a white male gamer, and I don't want to give money to people who hate me. It's all about playing the victim. They're literally just cry bullies. Oh, look, it's in the title.
thing that all of these game companies seemingly have in common. These people are fucking scum. Like, there's no other way to describe this. You are fucking scum.
These people are evil. The people involved with Sweet Baby Inc. are evil. They do not deserve your respect. They do not deserve for you to dance around this issue.
What's so fucking funny about this is that these guys are the ones who call everyone NPCs, but if you talk to these motherfuckers, they'll repeat lines like they're like fucking NCR soldiers walking around in New Vegas. I'm pretty sure the soldiers in New Vegas have more canned lines than you're likely to encounter arguing with these dumb fucks.
Wow, and there was me being all sarcastic because I thought this might be overblown. But no, this does sound really serious. There is an existential threat to the entire gaming industry and Western civilization, and they want us dead. People's lives are on the line.
But listen, I don't know how many of these people are actually like far-right fasci types outside of just like grifting drivel content for money. But like the whole Western civilization thing, it's just it's like explicitly Nazi propaganda. Like I know, Zan calling everybody who disagrees with Nazis, but like the entire premise of what the Nazis argued is that the Jews were pushing progressivism, which was a degenerate ideology destroying the West. Like, if you go to any far right, if you go to a fucking Ku Klux Klan rally, they will be talking about preserving the West. Because when people talk about preserving the West, that's Nazi shit. It just is. The West is not even a real, like a real category for a group. What is the West? When they say it, they mean white people. When some historians say it, or people who are just using it sort of just for the sake of ease of describing an area of the country, they usually mean like pretty much like everything west of Eastern Europe, right? Cutting off at like the Middle East and Africa and whatnot, obviously. Pretty much all of Europe and America. Maybe not South. Really, yeah, no, I think everybody when they say the West is pretty much just referring to like Europe and America and Canada. And even just like Australia, New Zealand, you know? Yeah. And what West is when you, non-Western country is when you are like Russia, China, Japan, anywhere in the Middle East, anywhere in Africa, you know? Like, it's interesting that like the West doesn't include everything south of the West, because like Africa extends further west than Europe does. Interesting that that's not counted as part of the West. But regardless, what they mean is whiteness. The West always means whiteness. Like, they mean European, like, white cultures. It's what people mean when they say the West.
And these people are evil. This is a battle between good and evil. And these people hate all gamers. But I mean, I play games. I'm a gamer. So that means they must hate me. Wow, surely not. I mean, nobody could ever hate me. I'm so likable. Well, if it really is this serious, I guess it's ethically irresponsible to not talk about it. So here we go. GAMERGATE 2. Wow, they really will make a sequel to just about fucking anything these days. GAMERGATE was about controlling the narrative. That's why it blew up, and why it kept going, and why people keep talking about it even years later. You see, there were two sides, and one...
What a great way to summarize it. GAMERGATE was about controlling the narrative. When something happened that people were going to be talking about, it was the job of people whose prerogative was to support this GAMERGATE movement. It was to control the narrative. They repeated all the same propagandistic talking points, and they repeated it over and over and over and over again until nobody could think of an alternative, regardless of how true that alternative was. Like, how many of you know the story, the real story of the triggered red shirt lady? I'm not going to show the whole video, but I think it's a good example of how the right did the whole just lie over and over and over and over again until like people believe it. Now, nowadays people have actually dug up the original videos, so you're seeing like videos like this come up as the thumbnail of a recent video about this. But like this famous image of this lady looking super triggered and angry, it's so cut out of context, it's ridiculous. So You can see here there's a dude here who's actually like up in her face, kind of yelling and screaming. He's actually really triggered and angry, like screaming, "Fuck you, you piece of shit. Oh, you think it's okay for immigrants to come in this country and rape all our women, you little, you cunt." That's like how he's screaming into her face. And she's being very calm and like collected with the guy, but everyone around her is screaming at him. She is the only one in this crowd, exclusively the only one in this crowd, not screaming in his face. She's actually speaking in a normal volume and making measured points. In fact, this frame is her saying to the guy, "Do you think all the men coming down or coming up from the southern border are rapists? You sound like some like hyper man-hater talking about all men being rapists right now." That's literally the argument she makes. She argues the guy talking about like immigrants coming up from the border to rape women sounds like a crazy hyper-feminist who hates men and thinks they're all rapists. And she doesn't like that. And the only reason she looks like this is because everyone around her is screaming. And she's doing that thing you might do at a party or a club when there's loud music where you're like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I said I'm going to go to the bathroom." Notice how you could have like totally took a cut of me there where I look fucking wild. Like you could totally clip out a single shot of me there where it looks like I'm like, you know, some shit like that, right? That's what they did to this lady. That is literally what they did to this lady. And we can go watch the original video now if we want. Though I've done it many times. I've shown the video and I have a segment about it if you want to see it, where we go over it and go over the true story of this lady. But this is one of the most ubiquitously used straw men of the left you ever see, like used constantly for the last decade plus. And it turns out it was complete bullshit. It's all, what a great way to define Gamergate. It was all about controlling the narrative. If people were talking about something, it needed to be filtered through the right-wing lens. And they would make sure that you could only consume content about that thing people are talking about from a right-wing figure, pushing it from a right-wing lens, and that needed to dominate the algorithm with repetition upon repetition upon repetition.
One said this was a movement about ethics and games journalism, and the other said this was a misogynistic harassment campaign pushing back against women in gaming. These two narratives contradicted and were in competition with each other, and so people fought to try to prove their side right and the other side wrong.
It is a consumer movement that rejects sloppy
Dude, who remembers back in 2016 when Milo Yiannopoulos was like this hip, cool, totally not a Nazi on like every mainstream news show representing the alt-right, which is this new era of pro-gay, allows trans and gay people in, like, era of young Gen Z, like, cool, hip conservatism. And then very quickly, like, all these mainstream news outlets realize they're just Nazis. They're just young, suit-wearing Nazis. Like, to give you an idea of how pervasive conservative culture was among the internet, let me show you one of the most, like, viral meme videos that wouldn't escape my recommended back in 2016. This has 2.6 million views. This is the type of cringe shit that went mega viral 7 years ago. And yes, this was fully liked, watched, and enjoyed unironically.
Build a great wall. Build a great wall. I would build a great wall. Build a great wall. I would build a great wall. Build a great wall. I would build a great wall. Build a great wall. And I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great wall. I will make Mexico work for that wall. Mark my words. I would build.
Yeah, oh my god, I watched this a million times when I was 11. I definitely watched this a few times when I was younger too. This kind of shit was the peak of like meme culture in 2016. Like the most viewed memes in 2016 were in some way, shape, or form praising of Trump. Even from non-political people, non-right-wing people, Trump wasn't seen as a political candidate. Trump was seen as this wacky fucking dude with no self-control who's so memeable, it's impossible not to, like, find him funny, right? Do you remember how long the cope from, like, even liberals who would do this kind of shit was like, I just think he's funny? Who remembers that? There was so much acceptance of even the most blatantly, like, poorly disguised far-right politics. It's really hard to describe to people who weren't there to see it, because, like, you think now is bad, but oh my god, now is like a cakewalk to be progressive online compared to back then.
Standards in reporting about video games.
Ethics in journalism is not what's happening in any way. It's actually men going after women in really hostile, aggressive ways. That's what Gamergate is about. It's about like terrorizing women for being involved in this industry, for being involved in this hobby.
The second half of it is the social justice warriors you mentioned briefly. There is a sort of insurgent move in video games from a couple of wacky left-wing feminists, and these are sort of far-left, Israel-hating, socialist weirdos.
The strange thing about this case is
what was really effective about Milo Yiannopoulos' presentation was obviously, like, he's not a bad-looking guy, right? Gay men know how to take care of their appearance. I don't know if this is like a taught thing or if it's a biological thing, but I don't know why us straight men don't know how to, like, take care of our appearances the same way gay men can. Listen, no, like, I literally all hate to Milo Yiannopoulos, but, like, he is a gay guy and thus knows how to take care of himself. And so he's a good-looking guy. Very clean cut, wears a suit, well-ironed suit, you know, he knows how to dress, he knows how to present himself, and he's charismatic in his speaking. Notice he's talking about something really ridiculous, which is caring about some insurgent SJW force that's trying to ruin video games. He talks about it in a way that, from his voice, sounds like he's acknowledging simply how, like, absurd all caring about this shit is, and yet still talks about it while simultaneously lampshading how ridiculous it is to care so much about it, right? And it was what's so effective about his rhetoric was he could explain or talk about or push an idea that's super dumb, ridiculous, and you're a massive loser if you care about it, but he would be so irreverent in pushing the ideas, and mind you, this is what a lot of these Gamergate-era content creators were good at, being really irreverent and pushing ideas so that they could not come off as caring too much. Because remember, they don't care. All of this is not because they care, it's because, well, they do care, but they want to make it seem like they don't care. Like they're disaffected and cool and edgy, and they're being attacked for it. And they're actually subversive and brave for being who they are.
Insurgent move in video games from a couple of wacky left-wing feminists, and these are sort of far-left, Israel-hating, socialist weirdos.
The strange thing about this case is there are a lot of right-wing American celebrities who kind of...
Guy Cocker? No fucking way is this guy's name Guy Cocker. Did he kill his parents?
Endorse this and given people something to rally around, and that's why a lot of people are attacking the likes of Zoe Quinn, who we just saw on that VT.
Bombarding her with mostly anonymous tweets and messages. I will you when I get the chance. Hiding behind usernames and claims of free.
All these things were fake, not real, or from people who must have just been joking, or that's just how the internet is, so you shouldn't take it seriously. The idea that there should be a conversation to be had that so many men are comfortable weaponizing the internet in order to mass harass a woman for daring to, like, have feminist opinions. Like, the idea that there's a conversation to be had there about how that's a problem was immediately hand-waved by, like, the more moderate Gamergaters as saying, like, that's just the internet, get over it, right? And it's like, well, the internet's not entirely bots. There are people on the internet who exist in the real world. So, like, when we talk about people's behavior online, we're also referring to the people behind those screens that use the internet's anonymity to behave how they truly would if there were no social consequence. And the fact that that is who they truly are, and without social consequence, that's how they'd behave, I think it's kind of a fucking problem with our society, right? Like, if there's just a bunch of people who the second they've got anonymity, they become like evil pieces of shit who like revel in other people's suffering? Is that not a conversation worth having? Nah, it's just the internet, you know, it's just the internet. Get over it. It's just the internet. No conversation worth being had about this, I guess.
Free speech.
Some people believe that some of these, in fact, death threats or some of these threats aren't real, and that what they're doing is trying to discredit the Gamergate movement by making it out that they're all these misogynists and creeps.
There were YouTube videos, media articles, social media censorship, doxing, and many abusive comments, and a whole lot more as the fight for the right to write history grew and grew. In time, people would see this sort of thing all over the internet. This is the culture war. It's internet politics. Left versus right, progressive versus anti-progressive, SJW versus anti-SJW, woke versus anti-woke. The names might change, but many things still remain the same. And while it does feel a little silly to see Gamergate being...
The culture war isn't going anywhere. It's the new era of politics. It's always been around to a degree, but never before has it been so vapid. And this is the least vapid it'll ever be again.
Invoked continuously, year after year, on all sorts of other culture war issues, there is a connection. The mistake these articles tend to make is in portraying Gamergate as the cause, whereas in reality it was actually just an earlier symptom of the real thing connecting everything.
Yep.
Still, there was something that did make Gamergate a bit different, which was that it was early enough in this great culture war of ours that people could pretend it wasn't about politics. I mean, ethics in games journalism isn't a left-right issue, and
I think the best YouTuber or figure or speaker who's summarized the view that Gamergate, like the way that Gamergate talked about politics, was the guy who makes the alt-right playbook. I forget what his name is, but you guys know. You guys know. Really, Innuendo Studios. I think Innuendo Studios said it best, where what is political is what is considered unpopular among the community. If you are in a group of people who all agree Nazis are bad, and you say Nazis are bad, that's not political. No one's going to get upset at you and say, hey, let's not get political in here, because everyone agrees with that statement. It's not going to start a fight or an argument. There's no one in the friend group that thinks, you know, maybe Nazis are all right, and all of a sudden it's going to start an argument. And so no one's going to say, hey, don't get political. But if you got someone in the group who's, you know, maybe a little partial to the Hitler particles, and you come into the group and you say Nazis are bad, all of a sudden that is a political statement, because people broadly or like agree with it maybe, but there are still those that don't agree with it, and it's going to start an argument. It's going to create waves, and thus you're going to be arguing about something. And hey, most people already believe Nazis are bad, so what's the point in even having the conversation at all? Let's just avoid any of the controversy and the conflict, right? That's kind of how they'll talk about it. And then on the other hand, well, how's feminism political, though? Like, why is it that saying I love Nazis or Nazis are bad, saying like I love Nazis is not political because it's seen as a joke. It's like an edgy joke. If you say it in like a space where, hell, people disagree or agree with the statement, it'll be viewed as an edgy joke unless it doesn't need to be by the people who are in the know on the dog whistle. Or if you say Nazis, or if, like, let's say you want to advocate for feminism, more often than not, these people would say feminism is political, while joking about being a Nazi is not. Because they disagree with feminism. In fact, a lot of people in these spaces, especially online, disagree with feminism. So talking about anything remotely feminist in nature would lead to political arguments, would lead to disagreement. And that makes it political. So the way that Gamergate talked about politics was such that if everyone broadly tended to agree, then it wasn't political, it was just joking and entertainment. No matter how clearly political of a statement they were making. But if it was a controversial statement like women should be represented less over-sexualized in games, where people might have a problem with that statement, then all of a sudden it's a political statement, and that's a problem. So you'll notice the justification for why you shouldn't be allowed to have political discussion, that is to say, be progressive. It always ended up just being you are being political by being progressive, but never by being right-wing, because that's always just joking and exaggerating, or just being ironic. like being progressive always meant you were trying to make things political, was how they pushed it. And if you were trying to make things political, then you were an asshole. And so the existence of people who disagreed with progressivism justified the idea that you shouldn't talk about progressivism. And if you talked about progressivism in the presence of people who disagree, then that would justify the idea that progressivism is bad, which justifies the idea that you shouldn't talk about progressivism or allow it to be, like, supported. That was essentially the triple loop, the triple, like, combined loop of logic the right would argue with during the Gamergate era to explain, with their mental gymnastics, how arguing that Trump isn't so bad actually is not political, but saying, yo, I think Trump's actually really bad is political, and you need to stop talking about it. You make a Trump meme where it's like he's presented as like a god emperor, it's like, it's fine. But if you make a post about how Trump did a bad thing, you're getting too political. It's like, okay.
Surely both the left and right can agree that sexism and harassment are bad, and that death threats and doxing are going too far. And at the start, Gamergate wasn't about politics. It was one minuscule event that snowballed and Streisanded its way into the mainstream. That event was a single blog post in August 2014 that one game developer made about his ex, Zoe Quinn, claiming she had cheated on him multiple times.
Well, Zoe Quinn goes by they, them pronouns now for anybody interested. At the time, they went by she, her pronouns and, you know, all that stuff, but it's they, them now. I don't know if this YouTuber knows that, but I figured that out because but there was a recent attempt to sort of dig this back up, the Zoe Quinn thing. Yeah, Zoe Quinn is an NB. There was like an attempt to drag it back up when Alec Hawalka killed himself, because he had been outed as an abuser by Zoe Quinn, and the right tried to claim that Zoe Quinn and many other women outing him as an abuser made him kill himself, and thus Zoe Quinn is a murderer, which is a popular hashtag among the right and was for years, because she outed her, or they outed their, God damn it, he got me to do it too! They outed their abuser, and that like led to them killing themselves, I guess, or him killing himself, I guess, and thus Zoe Quinn's somehow a murderer now. Like, it's literally the most backwards logic of all time. Mind you, Alec Kowalka was accused by many women and Zoe Quinn. Not just Zoe Quinn, to be very clear.
The Zoe post was about this couple's relationship and barely even touched on ethical concerns in games journalism, and its creator, Aaron Joney, did not go on to become a Gamergate supporter.
Yeah, this was not the guy who killed himself that wrote this.
Still, this post did carry an implication of receiving favorable treatment within the industry as a result of personal relationships, and it was posted on several gaming forums, which led people to search for other examples of potential conflicts of interest and nepotism within gaming media. The story then made its way to YouTube, where it was first covered by a then small YouTuber named Mundane Matt, who soon received a DMCA claim on the video, apparently from Zoe Quinn herself. This led to more attention, and was the start, but by no means end, of the Streisand effect, where trying to shut down a story backfires. In fact, at the height of those first months, almost every major gaming forum would try to shut down.
Yeah, people don't remember it, but Total Biscuit was a Gamergater. Like, the more I look back at some of his content, Total Biscuit, man, he wasn't always so based. Far be it from me to speak ill of the dead, but man, if he was still around today, I'm not gonna lie, I think he would be one of these like big Gamergate grifters. He was like already on that train while dying of cancer. I think if he never got cancer and was alive and healthy today, he would be up there with Grums and Asmongold and Revsis Desu and all these fucking weirdos pushing for games to have more horny in them. Like that is absolutely in character for Total Biscuit. A lot of his character was being an asshole, to be fair, which was endearing, but back then, like 10 years ago, a decade plus ago, like it was much less politically charged to be an asshole online. Now when a content creator wants to be an edgy asshole, they say slurs and make racist jokes. Back then they might have just like made really raunchy comments or something. Like, I feel like there's a very big gap between, like, look at 2016 or not, pre-2016 humor, like edgy humor, like old Filthy Frank up until when Filthy Frank wrapped up his show. Like, for all of how edgy and fucked up Filthy Frank was, it really wasn't that, like, problematic. You know, it was gross, it was raunchy, it was filthy Frank, you know? But, like, there weren't many cases where it was just Filthy Frank is screaming a slur or making a joke where the joke is, haha, racism funny. The further into his content you get, like the more recent you get, when he was like getting better and better and better and his quality was getting higher and higher quality and he refined his form more and more, it got less and less problematic. He used less and less bigoted, lazy humor and started to get more creative with like filth humor. Just simple, arguably somewhat innocent filth humor. And that slowly transformed after Filthy Frank left the internet into a bunch of copycats kind of badly perverting his humor into something different. I honestly think iDubbbz was a big like purveyor of this, despite iDubbbz and him being friends. Like I always felt like iDubbbz was trying too hard. When Filthy Frank was like making a little go a long way, iDubbbz would just scream two slurs combined for the punch of the edge and then like defend it because it's offensive or whatever. Filthy Frank never made a video where he defended his use of slurs. Back in the day, iDubbbz made a video where he responded to people that were upset at him using slurs, all like, well, it's meant to offend people. It's not me using, like that was his old content, right? But Filthy Frank never did that. He made a little go a long way, and he never got triggered about people being offended by his content, you know? And I feel like you've got Filthy Frank, and you got iDubbbz, so I feel like was a little bit of a step, you know, it's in the same ballpark, but a step in the wrong direction. But then you've got the people who, after that point, you know, iDubbbz is much better now, but after that point, they, like, perverted that format of, like, edgy filth humor online into simply being, let's say, the most offensive thing possible about, like, a minority group. And the funny thing is that you're not supposed to say that, and we said it. It's like the literal, it's the same logic as like 5-year-olds learning to say fuck, and then they like whisper fuck in each other's ears behind their parents' back, and they go, like trying not to like bust out laughing every time they hear the other one say it, you know? Like, did you ever do that as a kid? Like you and your best friend, like you learn a new swear word and you'd be like, hey, guess what? Ball sack. Okay. Hey. Ball sack. Like, back and forth, you just do that, but you'd have to whisper it to each other so no adults would hear. Like, literally that level of logic, except now it's racial slurs and, like, offensive shit towards minorities because you're not supposed to say that, and we said it, so it's real funny and edgy. It's like, okay, that can be funny from time to time, to be fair. When well-crafted, timed, and planned, and constructed with the right context, a super, oh, you're not supposed to say that kind of joke can totally land and be funny. Especially if you know the person saying it doesn't believe the atrocious thing they're saying as a joke. But more often than not, it's a Schrodinger's douchebag situation, where it's like, whether or not that person was joking when they said that racist thing, kind of, it's determined on how you respond. If you say, hell yeah, brother, yeah, fuck minorities or whatever, they're not going to say it was a joke. They're going to be like, yeah, okay, you're one of us, let's go. And they'll start, like, they'll be serious, and they won't, like, cloud it in irony. But if you're offended by it or upset at it, they'll be like, whoa, I was just joking. Why are you so offended by jokes, bro? Calm the fuck down. Like, what the fuck? Like, whether or not they were serious is based on your reaction. But if you agree with them, then they were serious. And they'll be like, another one of us.
Or heavily control all discussion of these events, claiming them to be against their site rules on harassment, and this included some pretty big sites, like Reddit and 4chan. And this bit was genuinely surprising. Keep in mind, this was 2014 4chan, back when the website still had a reputation as being this controversial Wild West, anything goes, free speech absolutist space, and the message this ban of Gamergate discussion sent was that anything goes, and people can speak about anything they want, anything in the world, except Gamergate. Meanwhile, at the same time that the largest gaming forums were telling people they weren't allowed to discuss it, Gamergate was still being talked about in the media, where it had made its way to major mainstream outlets like CNN and the New York Times, and where anti-Gamergate figures were appearing on late-night TV to tell their side of the story. This made people angry, or for those already angry, angrier. And angry people sometimes cause harassment. And
Yep.
so Gamergate was this event.
Like, yeah, Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, like all of them, like that were main figures in Gamergate as like targets, got like an insane amount of threats and harassment, swatting, doxing, all that stuff. You can't really pin it to a single group, website, or like organization of people because, like I said before, it's very stochastic. The point is that you can't pin it on anybody or any group of people. Like they want to be able to keep saying, oh yeah, these were lone wolves, lone wolves, lone wolves. Can't pin it on us, lone wolves, lone wolves. And, you know, the problem can persist, and any claim that we need to do something about it can be immediately rebutted with, these are lone wolves, unaffiliated, we have nothing to do with them, they're doing as they please, we can do nothing to stop them. This is the internet, turn off your screen, I guess.
That evolved and escalated continuously. Or, in the words of the Gamergate-focused Law and Order SVU episode,
What happened? These guys, they just can't stand women in gaming.
Oh God, I remember that episode. This episode was pretty interesting. The hilarious, okay, you can never not tell me it isn't hilarious that the, like, insane, like, incel gamer sex pest who is revealed at the end of the episode, no one spoil it if you're, yeah, you already spoiled it, versus Logan Paul was the villain of the episode. Logan Paul was the actor who played, I think this was one of his first TV roles, he played the, like, misogynistic incel who assaulted the women at the gaming convention. And so they, like, ambush the rapist or whatever, and he turns around, it's fucking Logan Paul. Or Jake Paul, I forget which one. That will never not make this the best episode of Law & Order SVU ever.
They leveled up.
I wonder if we've now reached the
God,
point in time
quote.
where many people don't know this exists.
Go home, gamer girl. What the hell is your problem?
You and your boss.
I saw this episode originally when it was on TV. Wasn't Ice-T in this? Yeah, he still is, I think. I'm pretty sure SVU is still on TV, and I think he's still in it. I don't think SVUs ain't going anywhere, guys. This show is one of the most viewed television shows of all time. Law & Order SVU. I'm pretty sure it's, like, never ending. It's like The Simpsons. Anyway, corny-ass dialogue is fuck in that episode. Once again, television writers don't understand gaming, gamer culture, lingo, anything. But they did somewhat hit on the spot, like, that the gaming community is pretty antagonistic towards women at times. Not in this way, though. It's more in, like, a, let me use an example I've heard several women say. In fact, actually, this is a really funny one, that story my mom told me, because she just reads Facebook posts and stuff like that, and this came up on her feed, and she thought it was a funny story and told me about it. And I was like, oh yeah, it sounds about right. There's this lady whose husband is very, very into Warhammer. Like, has tens of thousands of minis or some shit like that. The house is full of painted minis. He paints them. He's got tons of minis, and he buys them at game shops. Here's the thing, though. What he doesn't want to give, and she doesn't want to give, any of their money to, like, toxic assholes. So what they always do is when they go to a game shop to buy out, like, all their Warhammer stuff, is he sends his wife in first. And depending on how the employees at the game shop treat her as a woman, whether if they end up being condescending assholes or, like, degrading her or belittling her or mansplaining, she just walks right on out and takes her business elsewhere. But if they are accommodating, nice, polite, and just normal about it, then they're about to have thousands of dollars spent at their store. And they are going to be rewarded, but they do not know it. And that's always what they do. He always sends his wife in, and if the employees of the game store are polite to his wife, and they aren't sexist to her, and they don't make her feel uncomfortable, then they end up getting probably the most money they've ever made in a day in their entire lives, because this guy's very wealthy and very obsessed with Warhammer, and wants as many figures as possible. He buys out the shelves in the stores. You might be able to find this story, too. This is somewhat well known. And it's not uncommon for this kind of stuff to happen. I know that there's a girl that I talked to who's really into Magic the Gathering, and she went to a game shop to buy some Magic the Gathering cards, and they were, like, immediately like, are you buying this for your son? Are you buying this for your boyfriend? And she was just like, just walked away. Didn't say anything, just walked out of the store without saying a word and went and ordered them online instead. That's the kind of interaction that's far more common in real life scenarios like this than like the go home gamer girl in a public setting. It's more like some like these guys, the dudes who are like that online can't talk to women in real life. They can't look a woman in the eye in real life. Their only like toughness the only time they can feel or sound tough is online, and that's why they're so mean on the internet, is because that's where they get to be a tough guy, is online, right? In real life, I'm a 12-year-old with glasses and chubby cheeks. On the internet, I'm base Sigma Graper Chad 420. And, you know, I own libtards all day, right? That's why, like, the guys who are like this online aren't like this in real life, because they couldn't, like, he'd be looking at his feet like, I don't like you. You're bad for gamers. You know, that's how they'd be in real life.
Reina Punjabi only got this feminazi game made by being a slut.
This is real. It aired in early 2015, and it gets even better because the main Gamergate terrorist, yes, terrorist, is played by YouTuber and I guess WWE star Logan Paul.
Yep.
And not only is this a beautiful little...
They fucking... I like the fact... Dude, this is possibly the best GIF that's ever existed.
Logan Paul. And not only is this...
Best GIF on Earth. I love it when people post this on Twitter and his replies. Logan Paul's replies. It's so fucking funny.
It's a beautiful little piece of internet history. It also rather encapsulates where the anti-Gamergate side might have went wrong. Depicting people who disagree with you as terrorists isn't the best way to make them change their mind, or make their arguments go away, or make anyone...
Yeah, the show went a little too hard in their representation of Gamergate. Yeah, they went a little overboard.
On more empathetic. And this also applies to broad claims that everyone in a movement is racist or sexist. If this does anything, it's probably just radicalizing people, making them double down, making hate intensify, and furthering distrust and division on an already divisive topic.
The mainstream media could not talk about Gamergate in a way that did not make Gamergate look more appealing. In fact, their arguments were so weak, so out of touch, because there was no real, there's no stakes for these mainstream media organizations in covering this, and it was such an unserious story, they just kind of half-assed their coverage, and went, and covered it in such a way that genuinely made Gamergate look like a more powerful, appealing, and cool movement. Like, it made it feel like we were triggering the libs. We were triggering those, boomer, stick-up-their-ass, liberal, elitist, assholes, right? And the videos, episodes like this, I remember Chris Raygun did an amazing video, at least by my metric back then. I rewatched it a couple times because I thought it was so funny, where he reviews this episode of Law & Order, and it's just taken the absolute piss out of it, right? Because the way that these mainstream outlets covered this, even in their representations that are meant to be marginally fictional, was so overwhelmingly cringe that it was like, really? This is how dishonestly they have to engage with us? It was not a good look.
So, this is hopefully a brief snapshot of what Gamergate was like.
Whoa, Mirror's
Everyone
Edge.
wanted to control the narrative, and as the story grew, so too did the animosity, and the harassment, and the direct involvement of left versus right politics. Remember, this is back in 2014, when feminism was one of the hottest topics on the internet, and where there had already been a gamers versus feminists clash over the tropes versus women in games videos of Anita Sarkeesian. These two competing sides of progressive versus anti-progressive had already been drawn up, and so when Gamergate arrived, with the inciting event...
I gotta remember, this shit is a decade ago. I have to explain this stuff to new viewers. Getting into, the next few years, especially next election, we're gonna have people who literally, were in elementary or middle school, maybe younger when this stuff was happening, and have absolutely no recollection of it. And when it's referenced or talked about, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Some of those people might be here, though to be fair, I have more 45-year-olds watching me than I have 18-year-olds, apparently. Funnily enough, my audience are boomers, but I love you guys for it. I really like the fact that most of my fans are older than me. I think it makes me feel distinguished, I'm one of the adults.
being over who a female game developer may have slept with, this progressive versus anti-progressive sentiment fell into place perfectly. And in time, this political clash overshadowed and eventually consumed those initial concerns over ethics in games journalism. There's obviously a lot more you could say about Gamergate, but believe it or not, I don't especially want to relitigate all of Gamergate's many competing claims. This is a subject people have vastly different opinions and possibly perspectives on, and it's a subject people can be quite sensitive over. And I get that. I was there. I remember a lot of this pretty well, and there were just so many claims
I just
that were
remembered.
made.
Guys, I need to have Short Fat Otaku on stream for a debate. We need to have a debate on, like, I don't know, wokeness or something. I think he challenged me at some point, and I was moving, and I was just like, fuck, man, I can't schedule shit right now. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming that day when I wake up in the morning. Like, that was in the air at the time, whether I'd be streaming on that day when I wake up that day. So I just couldn't schedule anything and actually be there for it. And God knows I'm not scheduling a debate and then not showing. That is the most no shit ever. But I'm settled now. I need to see if I can organize that. I had to shoot him a DM.
At least some of which seemed like bullshit.
Wait. I think he wanted to debate me on the condition that PSA Sitch, like, on their show with the moderators, which is just outright hostile moderators. I've heard some people say they're relatively fair when they're in a moderator position. Like, they don't tend to be too picking of sidesy, so maybe I'll take a look and see if they actually are, like, regardless of their biases, pretty fair moderators, and maybe I'll give it a shot. But I'd prefer to just have them on stream for a 1v1, one-on-one combo. It's just, man, we'll have to watch a couple of his videos and write down some really hard-hitting quotes, because these people always move the goalpost when you talk to them. And so, like, if I talk to him, just like, hey, man, welcome to the stream. What do you want to talk about? Or, hey, I guess we'll talk about wokeness. What's your position on wokeness? He'll give the most defendable, like, you know, in his videos, he's posting the mot, and, you know, in the debate, he'll give his Bailey take. But if I've already covered a bunch of his videos and I've got a bunch of quotes I want him to talk about that are super impossible to defend, he'll have to move the goalposts. That's probably the best way to do it. Like, okay, got some things I want you to answer for, that kind of thing. There's nothing society fears more than a tilted gamer. So true, Joker. Guy, the person who said that is in a YouTube chat with a Joker PFP who's named the Gamer God. What an amazing account.
And seeing people promote things that weren't true, and seeing them spread and gain legitimacy, all amidst a lot of genuine hatred, well, that sort of stuff does make people feel invested. It makes people care. It generates an emotional response. I get it. I was there. And now I'm here. Gamergate 2. So, what minor events kicked things off this time? Sweet Baby Inc. are a small narrative development and consultation studio who place a particular emphasis on diversity and inclusivity. The current, still ongoing controversy took off after an employee at Sweet Baby Inc. asked his followers on Twitter to report a Sweet Baby Inc. detected Steam group, as well as its creator, for harassment. This happened on February 29th, 2024, but while this was when the controversy exploded, it wasn't when it started. And it wasn't when I first saw people talk.
Yeah, I covered this before that shit went down as well. So, the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff started originally with a small select group of content creators. The Heelverse Babyface, aka as the pronouns guy, the Geeks and Gamers crew, the Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, Mahler, like that sphere. I think I've like listed enough people that you guys know what group I'm talking about. Like you can fill in the gaps here because of how often they collab and how politically aligned they all are. And they say all the same shit. But they were the ones who started talking about Sweet Baby or SBI. What was it? It was SBI ESG, wasn't it? SBI ESG is what we heard the screaming fucking pronouns guy say. I was like, what the fuck do these words mean? What is he talking about? DEI, ESG, he also said SBI because Sweet Baby Inc. He also said, yeah, DIE as well, or DEI. Like, I was so confused at what he was talking about at the time because it was so out of nowhere, and it took me a bit to figure out he's talking about a conspiracy theory that was cropping up, and within maybe a week or two of me covering it, it was the thing everyone's talking about, you know? It blew up very fast.
Talk about this company. Sweet Baby Inc. became a subject of discussion on 4chan after the release of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2 in October of last year. Both of these games include...
Look at they literally are trying to argue that this company is ruining gaming, and yet they're behind Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, God of War fucking Ragnarok. Can you come up with a list of more widely beloved, praised games? Pretty sure Alan Wake 2 won Game of the Year because it was so fucking good. I don't know anything about it. I just heard it's great. Spider-Man 2, everyone loves it. Like, it's just fun as shit. It's a Spider-Man game. Like, they're great. They're fun. And then Ragnarok is just like, bro, it's the new God of War games. I'm a fan of them, so I have a bias there. But like, you're not gonna convince me these games aren't like massive successes and widely beloved. Hell, I listen to that God of War Ragnarok soundtrack like all the time, especially while making walks. There's no better music to listen to while walking or like going on a run than just some nice like ambient like God of War Ragnarok music. It goes hard.
Included Sweet Baby Inc. in their credits, and both of these games featured progressive or woke elements. The original threads on this are hard to find due to 4chan not being great for archived content, but the Kiwi Farms thread they led to does still exist.
Oh.
And as of writing this thread now has over 6,000 replies and almost 1 million views, meaning it has been quite widely seen. The thread begins by giving credit to a user of 4chan's video game board.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that post the drop Kiwi Farms thing, Kiwi Farms is now more like popular than ever. Like, its user base is larger than ever after all the attention that was brought to it, and its infrastructure is stronger than ever. It's got like stronger than ever capabilities for resisting DDoS attacks, takedowns. It's independently hosted, I believe, so it can't be taken down no matter how much you protest. And like, it's now pretty much untouchable and bigger than ever, and with a larger user base than ever, and more widely accepted than ever. Yeah, the drop Kiwi Farms thing, as it failed, dude. Like, it did. Kiwi Farms is very much still up today. Very easy to find. Like, you can go check yourselves. Just search Kiwi Farms, or hell, search Kiwi, and it'll probably autofill. Yeah, it's still very much there. Its user base is bigger than ever. Its infrastructure is stronger and more sophisticated than ever. And I don't believe it can be taken down now through protest, because I don't believe it's relying on any company to let them be up. So there's no... Kiwi Farms is forever now. And you could arguably say that's thanks to Keffels. Because especially the fact that Keffels made it the most broadly known it's ever been. Very few people knew what it was before. I was doxxed by Kiwi Farms back in 2020, either early 2020 or 2019. I was literally a teenager at the time. I don't think I'd even turned 20 yet. Had I? I might have. But I was living with my parents, too. So, like, when I got doxxed, my address got doxxed, they doxxed my family. And, yeah, it was really fucked up. But my response was just not talk about it. Because why give that shit attention? Nothing I do is going to get rid of it. What am I going to Streisand effect that shit by fighting it? Like, who the fuck cares? Not to mention, I haven't lived in that place for a very long time, so it's fine. But regardless, I just ignored it, and I didn't talk about it. And I didn't give them the power of me caring about it, you know? If I care about it, and I'm worried about it, and I freak out about it, that gives them what they want, which is, like, the reaction, you know? And so... I deprived that reaction, and I didn't tend to get a lot more harassment from Kiwi Farms after that point. So much so to the point that the one Kiwi farmer who was like a straggler obsessed with stalking me and talking about me went so crazy obsessing with me that the entire Kiwi Farms community hates him now. Flamenco destroyed his reputation with these people so much that, like, more people on Kiwi Farms are shitting on Flamenco to this day than even bring me up in conversation, apparently. So, like, just the best way to deal with it is to ignore it, frankly, and Keffals didn't do that, and it pretty much ended up making Kiwi Farms stronger than ever and more popular and known than ever. So, I guess mull that over.
And calling this one of the biggest scandals in gaming history. It then includes a lot of images taken from threads on 4chan, such as screenshots of Sweet Baby Inc.'s website, screenshots of games they've worked on showing their progressive elements, and information on some of the people who work at the company, like Kim Belair, Sweet Baby Inc.'s CEO, who is described as a Jewish woman destroying video games as we speak. I feel it's worth pointing out that I don't think Kim Belair actually is Jewish, and the only evidence provided is a screenshot of a different person who is a professor of Jewish literature, with Kim Belair showing up under people also viewed, but maybe I'm just missing something here. Still, it's the accusation of being Jewish that I think is more relevant than its accuracy. Sweet Baby Inc. were also accused of being possibly pedophiles, due to the company name including the word baby, and the similarities between their logo and symbols apparently released by the...
So, I promise you guys, this is not me defending Kiwi Farms. It's actually a very funny diss of Kiwi Farms. Many people have a somewhat warped perception of its user base. Most of Kiwi Farms, for sure, is a bunch of weirdo, incel, right-wing guys, but it's a complete hive of scum and villainy, and a quite diverse hive of scum and villainy, too. There is an entire section of Kiwi Farms that is called the Quarantine Zone, and that is where all the topics that women like are sequestered to. Makeup community drama, tea channel drama, all that type of shit is relegated to a, like, cornered off part of the website called the Quarantine Zone, where, yes, they quarantine women off. And that is the area where it is mostly femcel posting. It's mostly femcels and TERFs posting about hating men and hating trans women, and a lot of, like, really disgusting shit they say about trans men. So, like, a lot of it's like a very bizarre but surprisingly diverse hive of scum and villainy. I feel like a lot of people are doing a disservice to their understanding of what the website is like by assuming it's just all, Nazi weirdo dudes. It's actually a fair amount of other weirdos, you know?
FBI that supposedly represent...
I know this because I have a friend who is a browser of Kiwi Farms because she herself was a victim and had a lot of her personal information, including her nudes, leaked onto there. And ever since then, just browses it to make sure that her shit's not being posted or re-brought back up because she doesn't just... It freaks her out, you know? And so she's occasionally checked to see if they're talking about me because we're friends, and she updates me from time to time on, like, the state of that site. And a lot of what I know about it comes from her because she's, like, a progressive person that I know who... She's not a Nazi or a weirdo. She was a victim of Kiwi Farms. Mind you, Keffals, by the way, when I talked about this, at one point, Keffals clipped me talking about this friend of mine and framed it as if I was friends with a Kiwi farmer. This was somebody who was literally doxxed, had her nudes leaked, and harassed by Kiwi Farms. Not only that, but I was doxxed and harassed by Kiwi Farms way before Keffals was as well. I really do feel like that whole thing was just so badly handled, and handled by the wrong people, too. Jesus. Like, the last thing you want to do with, like, websites and groups like this is give them attention. She literally gave them international attention. Jesus.
This kind of thing. Again, discussion was much more active on 4chan than Kiwi Farms at this point, but the early pages of the Kiwi Farms thread do give an indication of what these early discussions on both websites were like, and several users did actually suggest creating a list of games the company worked on. Quote, "Every single game that studio was involved in needs to be documented and blacklisted. I'm thinking something similar to the Traitors of America page." Now, this is still October 2023, but we can see that these discussions were indeed reaching Sweet Baby Inc. because there are screenshots of people being blocked by the company's Twitter account, with the account eventually going private in response. And I think it would be accurate to say that some of this must count as harassment. I mean, Kim Belair is repeatedly called a Jewish pedophile, there's plenty of use of the N-word, and there's also your more standard accusations, like that this company is trying to destroy whiteness, and so on. Still, this is all a minor event at this point, mostly limited to 4chan, but some YouTubers did either see this or hear about it, and decided to make videos covering it. The first I can find is from Heels vs Babyface, where he basically criticizes the story of Alan Wake 2 and blames Sweet Baby Inc. for all of its problems.
So what exactly does Sweet Baby Inc.
Dude, why do these people rail against things that are beloved as fuck? Alan Wake 2? What is... Hold on, let me check. Doesn't this have, like, fucking Ozymandias level ratings? It won Game of the Year. On Metacritic, it's got almost 5 stars. It's at a 90%. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. So either this was the most glazed and dick-ridden game of all time, and it's not really that good, but everybody just decided to say it's like the best game that came out that year, and it won Game of the Year because everyone decided that. Either that's what happened, or this guy kind of threw punches at, like, the biggest game of that year. Slight correction, Game of the Year was Baldur's Gate 3. I can remember that since I got it from all the big award shows. Wait, I thought Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2 came out in different years. I swear Alan Wake 2 won Game of the year it came out. I thought Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year a different year. Because wasn't like the other runner-up Hi-Fi Rush? Maybe there were other... I don't know. Listen, I don't follow the Game Awards. It's really hard to track which games were which year. Both came out last year? I thought it was 2 years ago. Fuck me, dude. Getting older sucks. What the hell?
Which, by the way, sounds like a dating site for pedophiles, have to do with Alan Wake 2.
Man, these guys have pedophilia on their minds a lot for people who totally, definitely, absolutely are not pedophiles.
According to their own website, they worked on character arc, voice, and sensitivity reading. And by sensitivity reading, we of course mean someone who takes a body of work and makes sure that it conforms to the ESG, DIE, intersectional, far-left ideology, because they're a bunch of fascists, and of course, you must conform to their worldview or be destroyed. Basically, they're the Gestapo of the writing world.
The next reasonably sized YouTuber I can find covering it was Kyle, sorry if that's pronounced wrong, who said this.
What do you think a game like this, Alan Woke, and BlackRock 2 have in common? They all slid through...
Yeah, this dumb fuck. Yeah, I covered this guy's video. Yeah, this might be one of the most pathetic content creators I've covered. He is genuinely incapable of making an argument. The only thing he's got going for him is a pretty pleasurable to listen to voice, I would say, and relatively high production quality. High enough production quality for, like, you know, YouTube standards, right?
This self-described narrative consulting company.
It was also covered on the podcast Side Scrollers soon after, who made 3 videos about Sweet Baby Inc., the first being titled, This Company is Why Your Video Games Suck, where they literally just showed screenshots of 4chan threads to describe what the company is and does. And finally, it was also covered multiple times by YouTuber Griffin Gaming.
But guys, 4chan is a reliable source.
If you're familiar with the company Sweet Baby Inc., you would understand exactly why this story unfolds the way it does, as with so many other Sony games and video games in the industry at large.
Griffin Gaming's next video is good at showing how...
Mind you, these people have... their prerogative is to associate every broadly agreed upon to be bad thing with the wokeness, which, you know, like Sweet Baby Inc., right? So let's say Sony does... Here's an example. The Helldivers 2 PSN account thing. I guarantee you, these chuds were talking about it and saying it was woke Sony's decision because they don't like that Helldivers is so popular with conservatives. Guarantee you they probably, like, covered it that way. Or some way similar to that. I probably got pretty close to their narrative. It's very easy to guess what bullshit they're going to try to string together to make themselves look like some victimized heroes that are bravely fighting against the woke. Like he said before, it's all about controlling the narrative.
Conspiratorial the Sweet Baby Inc. discourse was in this early stage.
Today, what we're going to be talking about is pretty crazy, dude, and if you would have asked me a year ago if I believed all this could be possible, I honestly don't know if I...
It's hilarious how many of them are using literal, like, CSGO surfing footage, not even trying to hide that they're Leafy clones.
I would, because it just seems really outlandish, but I 100% can assure you that it is actually...
I think this is where I'm going to wrap up this video, because, God, like, I hate these guys. But I really like this guy's video, the one that we're watching now, and I highly recommend you guys go check out the full video, because you guys know how I do my reactions on this channel. I don't watch the full video. I give you a nice sample, a nice taste, and then I get you guys hooked. And I make you want the link that I just put in chat and will be in the description when this goes out on YouTube. If it's not, comment, and my editor will get to it. It's not my fault. It's my editor's fault if it's not there, okay? I'm not in charge of that. But yeah, go watch the video. Go drop support. I went ahead and subscribed and dropped a like. Highly recommend you check out this channel because I really enjoyed this video, and it's very well researched and very good. And this seems like it could be a, you know, an up-and-coming, like, big lefty channel. Who knows? Never knows best. Month-old video with 151,000 views. That is not bad at all. That's what I like to see. Nice. I like to see a lefty doing well, making money, getting views, gaining subs. Is it just me? Like, do other lefty content creators, like, get happy when they see a progressive channel, even when they don't necessarily, like, gain subs? Because it's like, yeah, okay. Like, they're just showing it, like, progressive, like, ideas are not so hated by this current state of internet culture that you just can't viably build a left-wing channel online anymore, right? I feel like I feel like it's just a reminder, like, it's still possible. Like, there's not so much animosity for progressivism online these days that you can't build something up like that, and that's good. That makes me really happy. That's the big difference between now and Gamergate. The biggest difference, in my opinion. You could not have done this back in Gamergate. I could not have existed doing what I do now back in Gamergate because I would be under a constant torrent of response videos and harassment for every breath I took. And, like, I would just be constantly getting, like, demanded to enter, like, a 1v8 debate, like, call with, like, Andy Worski and, like, 7 other like weirdo Nazis and like forced to sort of 1v8 them in a debate like every week. That was basically the state of being a progressive content creator back then. Really can't describe it further, but you got to have been there to know. You got to have been there to know. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video or the one we watched, please consider leaving a like. Subscribe, ring the bell icon so YouTube tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And just like liking, consider dropping a comment, because not only do I like seeing your support and your comments down below and reading them, but it also boosts the channel and the algorithm. Every like and comment is like a little prod in the YouTube algorithm, to the YouTube algorithm, to push my stuff out to more people. It really helps a lot, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you to everybody who does that. Seriously. It means a lot. And if you haven't already, please follow my social medias linked down below if you want to see more from me elsewhere. And if you want to support me financially, directly, because you want to, you got the money for it, and you feel like doing it, maybe consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. Or maybe even supporting me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, or Patreon. Or buying merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. You can, of course, also join my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my community, the main, like, place where we kind of, you know, where we're, like, it's where we gather as a community. It's the main hub. And I do announcements there for my videos and my streams. And I also do game events. I host watch parties, and I do call-in streams there. So if you haven't joined already, please do. It's totally free. And I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoyed.